Hello, friends. In fact, we have started the new chapter in economy. And the name of the chapter which we have started is National Income Accounting. Like before we have started National Income Accounting, we have covered certain basics in economy. In fact, we have also provided the strategy and references to understand the subject of Indian economy. Now, in the previous video, what I have told is like I have given you that there are certain sectors in any macro economy who play a key role in doing out certain economic activities, and what are those four major economic sectors మనం డిస్కస్ చేసాం. Now in this video, like we are going to talk one more important concept under this chapter, which is known as like the circular flow of incomes and expenditures. So this is also one important content which you can generally find even in the NCERT of class 12, which is like National Income Accounting chapter lo ఈ టాపిక్ కూడా ఉంటుంది. Now, what exactly the concept of circular flow of incomes and expenditures is? So, the concept of circular flow of incomes and expenditures, in fact, it reflects the kind of interrelationships that exist between the four major economic sectors of the economy. So it means that సో మనకి ఫర్మ్స్, హౌస్ హోల్డ్స్, గవర్నమెంట్, ఇట్లా ఫైనాన్షియల్ సెక్టర్, సో వాట్ ఎవర్ ద ఫోర్ మేజర్ సెక్టార్స్. సో దీస్ ఫోర్ మేజర్ సెక్టార్స్ ఇన్ ఎనీ మ్యాక్రో ఎకానమీ, they work like they do not work independently, they do not work separately. When I say they do not work separately, it means like there is some interconnectedness among these four sectors. There exist certain interrelationships among these sectors. Now circular flow of incomes and expenditures explains what is the kind of interconnectedness, interrelationship that exists between the four economic sectors. This is the point. సో ఇది మనకు సింపుల్గా ఏంటంటే సర్కులర్ ఫ్లో ఆఫ్ ఇన్కమ్స్ అండ్ ఎక్స్పెండిచర్ అసలు ఈ ఫోర్ ఎకనామిక్ సెక్టార్స్ మధ్య ఉన్నటువంటి కనెక్షన్ ఏంటో చెప్తుంది. Now to understand what is the interrelationship that exists between the four major economic sectors, సో మనం ఫోర్ ఎకనామిక్ సెక్టార్స్ తీసుకొని డిస్కస్ చేసే దానికన్నా now let me pick up two sectors from out of four, so that వాళ్ళ మధ్య ఏ interrelationship ఉందో let us understand. Now what I am doing is like I am picking up two sectors. Now the first sector which I am picking up is the sector which is firm. Now the second sector which we have is like households. So మనం two sectors తీసుకుందాం, వీళ్ళ మధ్య ఇంటర్ రిలేషన్షిప్ ఏముందో చూద్దాం. నౌ జనరల్గా ఏంటంటే, సో ఫర్మ్స్ మీన్ లైక్ ద ప్రొడ్యూసర్స్ ఆఫ్ డిఫరెంట్ గూడ్స్ అండ్ సర్వీసెస్. సో ఇన్ ద ఎకానమీ వాట్ విల్ ద ఫర్మ్ డూ? So firms are like such sector which produce goods and services. Now you can understand like firms, they produce like the goods. Now these goods are technically known as final goods and services. In fact, we have other type of goods which is known as intermediate goods, but firms produce final goods and services. Now you can like point out the arrow towards the direction of the households. Now to produce these final goods and services, now what will the households do? Now households, what they will do, they supply certain inputs, and these inputs are known as factor inputs. So factor inputs, they are also known as factors of production. So factors of production or factor inputs are being supplied by the households. Now you can look at the arrow mark. It is being directed towards the firm. So it means like firms produce final goods and services. To produce these goods, households has to supply the factor inputs, like it might be the labor, it might be the land, it might be certain capital. సో వీళ్ళు ఇది సప్లై చేస్తేనే వీళ్ళు ఫైనల్ గూడ్స్ అండ్ సర్వీసెస్ ప్రొడక్షన్ చేయడం జరుగుతుంది. ఇట్ మీన్స్ దెర్ ఈస్ సంథింగ్ where the firm is depending on households and households are also depending on the firms. ఇది ఒక లూప్ అన్నట్టు, ఒక లూప్, which means like from firm certain things are moving to households, from households certain things are moving towards the firm. Since something is moving from firm to households and from back from households to firm, that is why we used to call it as circular flow. సో సర్క్యులర్ ఫ్లో అనే దాన్ని ఎందుకంటామంటే ఒక సైడ్ నుంచి ఇంకొక సైడ్ నుంచి ఆపోజిట్ సైడ్కి మనకు సర్టెన్ థింగ్స్ అనేది ఫ్లో అవుతుంది. అయితే ఈ యొక్క లూప్లో ఎక్కడా కూడా వీ హ్యావ్ నాట్ మెన్షన్డ్ లైక్ ఎనీథింగ్ విచ్ ఇస్ కనెక్టెడ్ టు ప్రైస్. సో ఇన్ ఎకనామిక్స్ when we have not mentioned anything that is connected to price, now this kind of flow is referred as real circular flow, a real circular flow we used to call. So the term real means without prices. So this is the first connection between firm and households. Now since households are supplying factor inputs or factors of production like labor, in return what will the firm do? Now in return firms provide certain incomes to the households because of utilization of their services. Now such incomes are known as factor payments. It is also known as factor cost. It is also known as factor incomes. So firms, in return of their usage of factor inputs, they provide incomes to the households that is known as factor payments or factor costs or factor income. Now what are factor payments? Factor payments means the payments made by the firm to the households for the utilization of 4 factors of production. Why we have used the term factor income? So when we look it from the household's perspective, means like since I have worked in a particular firm, in return I am going to get certain income. Now when it is being looked at from the household's perspective, we can call it as factor income. Why I have used the term factor cost? Because the reason why I have used the term factor cost, because it is a cost of production for the firm. So it means in producing goods and services, the payment which the firm made to the households becomes the cost of production for the firm. Now the households have received the factor incomes. Now whatever the factor incomes which the household receive, now these factor incomes are being used to buy different goods and services which the firm produce. So whatever the final goods and services which the firm produces now is being used by the households. Now this kind of expenditure which the households incur on purchasing these final goods and services, they are technically known as private final consumption expenditure. We used to call it as PFCE. So PFCE is the final expenditure done by households on the final goods and services. Now you can look at in the second loop, you can look at that certain money or prices are being associated, like money, factor payments, like expenditure, money is being associated. Since money is being involved, now we can call this type of flow as nominal circular flow. So the real circular flow without prices and nominal circular flow with prices, they together comprises the circular flow of incomes and expenditures. So these are certain points which we have to understand. సర్క్యులర్ ఫ్లో ఆఫ్ ఇన్కమ్స్ అండ్ ఎక్స్పెండిచర్ కాన్సెప్ట్ ఏం లేదు. సెక్టార్స్ ఏదైతే ఉన్నాయో ఎకానమీలో అవి ఒకదానికొకటి ఇంటర్ కనెక్టెడ్నెస్ ఉంది. ఆ ఇంటర్ కనెక్టెడ్నెస్ని అర్థం చేసుకోవడానికి మనం 2 సెక్టార్స్ తీసుకొని వాళ్ళ మధ్య ఏ ఇంటర్ కనెక్టెడ్నెస్ ఉందో మనం డిస్కషన్ చేశాం. దీంట్లో రియల్ సర్క్యులర్ ఫ్లో అనే కాన్సెప్ట్, నామినల్ సర్క్యులర్ ఫ్లో అనే కాన్సెప్ట్ డిస్కస్ చేశాం. విచ్ మీన్స్ సో దిస్ ఈస్ ద కాన్సెప్ట్. ఇప్పుడు ఇక్కడ మీరు ఒకటి అబ్జర్వ్ చేస్తే హౌస్ హోల్డ్స్కి ఇన్కమ్ ఎక్కడి నుంచి వస్తుంది? ఫ్రమ్ ద ఫర్మ్స్. నౌ వీ యూస్ టు కాల్ ఇట్ యాజ్ ఫ్యాక్టర్ ఇన్కమ్స్. హౌస్ హోల్డ్స్ ఏం చేస్తున్నారు? వచ్చిన ఇన్కమ్లో ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ ఒక హౌస్ హోల్డ్కి 100 రూపీస్ ఇన్కమ్ వచ్చింది, దీన్ని ఖర్చు పెట్టారు పిఎఫ్సి. ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ ద పిఎఫ్సి ఆఫ్ ఏ పర్టికులర్ హౌస్ హోల్డ్ ఈస్ 80. Now the remaining 20 ఏదైతే ఉందో, now this extra 20 rupees is now being diverted towards savings. So we used to call such kind of savings as household savings. So what is the formula for household saving? Household savings means whatever the income they receive to whatever the expenditure which they spend. That what is whatever the difference, we can call it as savings, which are known as household savings. This is the point. Now that is why, since household saves, we generally open up bank accounts. Now we have also the savings of corporate, like the firms. Now the savings of the firms, like we know that whenever a firm produces goods and services, they get certain profits. Now these profit, out of these profits, certain things are being diverted toward savings. Now we used to call such kind of savings as corporate savings. Corporate. Now in fact, government, which is also one kind of sector, government also goes for savings, but most of the times government savings are negative in nature, which means government being the has to perform the role of welfare, it has to incur more expenditure. That is why they indulge in borrowings. Hence we economists used to say that the savings of the government, we used to call it as government generally de-saves. So these are certain points which you have to understand with regards to circular flow of incomes and expenditures. Thank you.